Sergeant Larry Sossamon, United States Army, Vietnam. I had the great honor and privilege of meeting and interviewing Larry in Spartanburg, South Carolina over 17 years ago, folks. It was March 21st, 2007. And at that time I interviewed quite a few veterans, including some of the veterans that are featured on my channel, most notably John Littlejohn and Terry Simmons. You've heard their stories here. So Larry Sossamon is featured in my film, Vietnam Remembered. Just a great man, just a wonderful patriot. And I was so honored, to, like I said, to meet him and to learn more about Vietnam through his eyes and ears. He was drafted in June of '67, was in Vietnam in '68, March of '68 to March of '69. His MOS was a 35 Lima, which is avionics electrician or electronics. He served with the 520th Transportation Battalion, the 59th Evac, and the 335th Signal Battalion in Vietnam. So he, very versatile, was just used in a lot of different capacities there, and just one of my heroes of Vietnam. Just a very humble man. You'll see his demeanor. He's just really, really down to earth, and I just so appreciate his story and him telling me his story of Vietnam. I want to thank Daniel Finnegan. First time, Daniel, working with you, sir. Thank you for your service to our country, by the way, and I just am happy to share Larry's story today, Daniel, and it's the one that I chose for you, and I know you'd be okay with that. But thank you for making it possible for me to share his story with our audience today, with my YouTube family, and on my Voices of History radio channel. Larry's story will go there after it airs here. So, but Daniel Finnegan, I salute you. And again, thank you for your service, and thank you for your dedication to our Vietnam vets and all of our veterans, and just welcome home to you, brother. Folks, on occasion I share with you opportunities that I have, and I'm trying to raise some funding to go to Nashville in August to record my story. I've had an opportunity down there in a studio, a professional environment, to tell my story. I call it capturing courage on camera, and that's what I've been doing the last 21 years. So this is going to be more than just a short little news interview. I'm going to spend a couple of hours, a couple of days down there recording my story, and I've asked some of you to help me with this project, and I'm going to ask my viewing audience at large to think about that. It's something that I've been wanting to do. I want to tell my story of how I've told all their stories the last 21 years. So I think for me it'll be very therapeutic, just like with all these veterans, and I'll be able to share what I've heard, what my eyes and ears have heard and seen over these years with all of these veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. And I just want to share my story. So I have this opportunity. So if you'd like to become a part of that, there'll be a link in the video description. It'll be also in the comment section of the video. And I would just encourage you to just donate to that, and that would be really a blessing. It's something I want to do. I'm working my way to getting to that point. I'm not there yet, but I'm just going to ask you for your help, and I appreciate it, for you to consider it. So thanks for watching, listening, subscribing to this channel, sharing these stories, folks. Freedom is not free, freedom is earned, and embedded in all of my stories are why we're free. And that's why it's so powerful, especially in the day we're living in now. They're trying to erase history. Some people are. Well, I'm their counterpart, and I say no, that's not going to happen. So we're happy to share these stories with you. I got a lot of new listeners out there, so I would invite you to get involved with this project. It's a ministry to me, as those of you know that have been watching this channel for a while. Labor of love. So God bless all of you. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll hope you enjoyed Larry Sossamon's story. I'm proud to bring it to you. Question I want to ask you is, what year did you go to Vietnam?
I arrived in country in March of '68. And
one tour?
Yeah, one tour. I returned back on March of '69.
Give me the group you're with, the Army?
Yes, United States Army. And
company, battalion, regiment, what?
I was with the 520th Transportation Battalion, and more specifically, 20th Transportation Company. And served with the 59th Medevac, and also with the 335th Signal Battalion.
What was your MOS?
35L.
Which is again?
Is aviation electronics.
Okay. And your rank at that time?
I was E5 sergeant.
Okay. So did you enlist?
No, I was drafted, and then I chose to go to a school, so I added another year to my enlistment and went to a school, and then went to service. I was in June of '67 when I went into the Army.
Okay. So what's the mood of the country at the time? Do you guys feel a real sense of duty to serve your country?
I think I was sort of blank with what was going on outside of my world and what I was doing. I don't really know that I was focusing on what was going on. I know that during basic training and during my advanced individual training that there was, but once you get into the service, you really don't see the news media that much or know what's going on too much, or I didn't realize, or didn't pay attention to it too much. But I knew that there's a war going on and that there was a fear that I would go, so I was one of the ones that had to go. So when they told me to pack up, I packed up and went.
So where'd you do your basic training at?
I did my basic training at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
So when you're going through your training, is your mind thinking, I'm going to be in Vietnam someday, or are you just kind of focusing on your training?
Yeah, that's sort of I guess everybody looked at it as kidding one another, that you're going to go to Vietnam and you're going to be in the jungles, and you know there's always sort of an installation of fear, and then a lot of your trainers like drill sergeants and all that had been there in country and come back from Vietnam that were training us. A lot of them, you know, they sort of struck fear into you that you were going to go. So, but I don't remember being scared about going until I actually got papers to go. So, and I don't know that it was a real fear until I got there in country.
Tell me about arriving in country, what you remember if you got off a plane, the smell, the temperature. I mean, what do you remember about that?
I know it was, we came in at a beach, and I believe they call it Cameron Bay. And it was white sand, and it was the hottest place I think I'd ever been. I've been to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but that was the hottest place. And I remember it was hard to walk in the sand because your boots would mire up. It was so soft, and then just the heat was the biggest thing that I felt. Everybody there, we were a large group of us, and you thought you'd get off the airplane with rifles ready to fight, but it wasn't that way for me. I went from Cameron Bay, and they flew me to Saigon to the 90th Replacement Company, and I stayed there for a few weeks, and then they made me an assignment to go to Phu Loy, which is northwest of Saigon. And then once I got to Phu Loy with the 335th Signal, they reassigned me to Cu Chi in Vietnam, which I stayed my whole tour there at Cu Chi. And it was the home of the 25th Infantry Division, and the I believe it was 12th Evacuation Hospital, which a part of that was the 59th Medevac, which I had several missions with them.
And did you fly medevacs? Is that what you did?
Yes, I wasn't a pilot, I was a crew member.
And were you trained first aid and medical treatment?
No, I was just a crew member. I wasn't a medic.
So what was your responsibility on board?
Well, we would go out and pick up sick or someone that had, if they'd had a firefight or something, we'd go out there and pick people up, but and bring them back in, and then even the dead, and then other missions that we had, we flew out, and I believe they called it USS Hope, which was a ship out in the, I think they called it the Gulf of Tonkin. And we'd fly them out to the medical ship out there where they would recover from their wounds or whatnot. But
what was the hardest part of what you had to do in Vietnam for yourself?
I don't remember other than just time. When you get in trouble, time goes slow, and that's what happens over there most of the time. You stay in trouble or worry, your time's going to go slow. When you're having fun is when time goes fast, but I think time just drifted so slowly for all of us that went over there that you sort of counting the ticks in the clock every day, and it just didn't go by very quick. But after I'd been there a year, it seemed like it just flown by.
What about the enemy, engaging the enemy? Were you involved with a lot of that in combat, or tell me anything that you remember about that?
No, in our base camp we got shelled quite a bit, but I got there right at the end of the Tet Offensive in '68, which the country was really, in Saigon particularly, where I flew into, was still up in arms and very much trying to take over military control back over that from that. So we got there when there was a lot of hostility. Our group was there, and we went over individually, but I was with a group that going to assignments. It was it's terrifying once you get there and you start receiving incoming. So you really don't know. Nobody can prepare you for that right there. You just sort of have to feel your way through it. As far as missions and with helicopters, I guess the worst part about it was there was connexes outside the 12th Evacuation Hospital that we stored our bodies in that for Graves administration to come pick up if we flew them back in. So as far as real hostilities, the biggest thing that I ever encountered was the in the base camps, which we got shelled quite often, but that was probably my biggest fear and experiences with that right there. And then the little Tet Offensive in March of '60, in February of '69, we had a good bit of invasion from Viet Cong that came through our wire and into the base camp. So we lost a good many fellows during that time because in base camp we didn't see activity every day, and even flying out I didn't see activities every day. Most of my missions were going out and picking up what sick or wounded might have been there, but I didn't really get into a firefight with the medevac or with any of the combat flights that I was there. So I was very fortunate not to have been through some of that, but I'd seen the aftermath of them, and that's quite troubling to have gone through those experiences.
So when you say the aftermath, you're flying into an LZ and you're picking up the wounded. Are you helping transport them onto the helicopter? Or?
Oh yeah. We get out and help them, and also the other individuals there helping us load them up, and we'd take them back in to the 12th Evacuation Hospital. They called us dust off, and we'd fly them back into the hospital, and then we'd take them off of that. They'd come out with gurneys or whatever that we had to, or stretchers, and we'd put them loadable on the gurneys, and even take them on into the 12th Evacuation Hospital tents.
So, Larry, what do you remember about some of these patients? I mean, what kind of wounds do you remember? Were they conscious, unconscious? I mean, did that bother you after the war, thinking about all these things, or things you saw?
Yeah, you can't realize what kind of pain people are in until you've seen the pain that they go through. If they've got if they've got a head wound, or if they've got any type of a body wound, you can see the pain that they go through. But sometimes they're sedated. You don't. Once we got there, you can't see it. But you wonder how they can lay there so calm and still when they're flying back in, and knowing that they've had it, but they've been sedated to be able to carry some of the pain within themselves without knowing it. So, yeah, that's bad. But see the guys that you have to bring back that you put in these connexes that didn't make it through something like that, that's troubling too. Hope that they didn't have too much of a pain in their last minutes.
Did any of those guys die in your presence on board these Hueys? Are you on the Huey helicopters, I'm assuming?
No, I didn't. I didn't do it. We picked up dead, and we one experience we had to go out and pick up a guy. But when I got there, I was told that he was a dog trainer, and they had to shoot his dog in order for us to get him, because he was in protection of his. I didn't see that happen, but that was something that sort of stuck in my mind. How this dog trainer was, who he had been there a couple of days, and this dog stayed with him, and that was quite admirable. But they had, before they could get to him, the people that was helping recover his body had shot the dog.
So what goes through your mind at a time like this? Do you, the aftermath of war, I mean, are you conscious of, you know, like a lot of the soldiers I've talked to, fighting for God and country, or is it a matter of survival? I mean, what are your thoughts at the time, or are you just focused on what you're doing, you don't think about what's really happening?
Today, I can become depressed over what we've been through. I want to wave my flag, and I want to tell everybody what I've done, but then I've got another mixed side too. As the year I came back from Vietnam in '69, 2 months later, my younger brother was sent to Vietnam. He was with the 101st Infantry Airborne in a recon outfit, and he stayed in country for 9 months and was killed by a landmine explosion in April of 1970. So I just wonder if after seeing his death and the others that I had seen over there, their deaths, or even some of the maimed that came back, and then the way the war came out in the end, I know that we did our job, but I think that somebody let us down and we didn't get to do our job all the way. I wonder if it was worth it now. So I got mixed emotions with it, and it can be depressing just to know that you may have done something that there's no gratitude or reward for either yourself or your country, especially in the loss of a life, especially my brother, who he and I were very close. So he was he was born. He and I were 11 days apart in age. For 11 days each year, he and I had the same birth date. So he was born on October the 2nd. I was born on October the 13th of the previous year. So he would have, for 11 days each year, he and I would have been the same age. So, you know, that to see my folks to go through two years of boys being overseas and worried about them, and then to lose a son, and by all means, my younger brother had a much harder course of time than I did. I got to be in a base camp, and he was not. He was out in a recon station out in the field, trying to avoid contact, but the living conditions out there were very nerve-wracking and quite uncomfortable, I feel sure. So I carry a lot of question about why we should have been there, and it's depression. I don't ever guess I'll ever know an answer to that right there, but I do carry depression over that because of a loss of a brother. Not so much my time, but his loss, and then other families. I know a lot of other families that lost people there. So.
Where were you when you got notice that your brother was killed?
When I got out of the service, and went to be a police officer in Columbia, South Carolina, and I'd just come home from a week's tour, from a week of work, and was at the house. And at 6 o'clock on a morning, sometime after April 16th of 1970, a sergeant came to the door at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I got up and went to the door first before my folks did, and I knew what it was about as soon as I saw it. Either he had been killed or had been wounded in some fashion. And the sergeant told me that he wanted to speak to my dad, and my dad came to the door still in his pajamas, and then I heard my mother coming down the hallway, and she knew, she had an instinct of what was going on, so it was quite a shock and disbelief of what had just happened or what was being reported to us. So they told us that he had been killed by a landmine explosion, and I never will forget that morning. It's almost as much as having the reality of being there in Vietnam and watching the death of the boys that were there, the ones that we had to put in. So I knew what his body was going through as they were going through Graves administration and shipping him back home. He was killed on the 16th, and then on the we got him home, I believe, on the 21st of April, and we buried him on the 24th of April. So it's about that time of year now. April is coming up on us, so you don't ever forget that. My parents grieved so much, I believe, in the stress that they lived through with my tour and my younger brother's tour, that they grieved so much and was under so much stress that they developed cancer, both of them, and died within a few years after his death. So those are mixing my emotions and depressions over what kind of a life could they have had if they didn't have to go through that, and what could my brother contributed to this world if he could have been here. So yeah, I think about that a lot.
Do you think about the families today that are losing loved ones in Iraq, Afghanistan? I mean, the same thing that you went through.
Yeah, it's, I can't see that, I'm an American and I would serve our country again. I've got two boys that, and a son-in-law that I fear that they would have to go in. I would want them to serve, but I'd want them to have a good plan to go, if they had to serve, to make sure that it was a good plan to want to do it. But the politics of war is a terrible place to live. And the families that are going through what they have, no one from our community or Gaffney has lost anybody, but here in Spartanburg, South Carolina, I know there's been a couple of families that's lost some people over there in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I feel for them. I want to contact them and let them know that they're not alone and try to be of some comfort to them. But I hate to go to tell somebody, I know how you feel, when really nobody knows how anybody feels when they go through that. But so I worry that these families are going through those things and with the loss of their loved ones, and I hate that.
The price for freedom, huh?
Yeah.
Tell me about the price of freedom.
We paid it. Our family has paid for it. And if you serve your country, you're paying for the price of freedom. I've seen other countries. I've been overseas to other countries, and I've seen the type of government that they serve under in the Germany's, and then in France and Italy. I think we have a great country, and that the paper that our rights and freedoms are written on, and Bill of Rights and the Constitution, are great instruments. And sometimes when you apply the people to the instruments, it doesn't always come out the same way. But I think we've got a great country. I know we have a great country, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And I continue to support it today, and hopefully I've instilled that into my family members and my friends that know me, that they know that we are great supporters of our country.
Did you work with the Graves registration? You were mentioning that, or is that just something you saw other people do?
No, I didn't work directly with them. They were there with the at our base camp, so they had to handle the Graves administration there at our base camp. So I didn't. I just knew that's what happened when the body came in. That's where it went to Graves administration, and then in preparations to bring him back home.
Tell me again your job in Vietnam. What exactly you were doing is your job?
I was a crew member, and I flew with the on UH-1H helicopters, and I flew with the 20th Transportation, the 520th Transportation Battalion, and then I also flew with the 59th Medevac.
But what were you doing hands-on? What was your responsibility?
I was just a crew member that normally you'd have I was a door gunner with the 20th Transportation. And I carried a weapon with me as a crew member on the 59th Medevac, but we didn't have any machine guns or M60s or anything loaded onto the 59th, onto the UH-1Hs there. But mainly I was a crew member and assisted the medic in loading and unloading and any administration of care that I could help them with, I would try to, but my main focus was just to be a crew member to fly with the helicopter.
So when you're assisting the medics and stuff, I mean, are these wounded soldiers, are they conscious, or they've had morphine probably, they've been sedated, you said, so, and then you're getting down there and picking them up and putting them into the helicopter? Yes,
we are, and we when we go out to the field, a lot of times the fellows there will do it, or we pick them up from out and see if they were sick or something like that. And maybe some of the guys had a heat stroke or had something, a problem with them. We'd pick them up and bring them back in. We'd fly out, pick them up, load them into a helicopter if they did the assistance, and then we'd fly them back into the hospital for evaluation and treatment.
Did that ever get routine, Larry, or is it always something new every day?
Every day there's something. I mean, there's nothing the same place every way. You might be in a rice paddy one day, or in a jungle over the canopy another day, or you might be flying into a village to pick up someone there that there. You know, we even assisted South Vietnamese that had health problems. One time we went into a village, and I don't know the name of the village, but we flew into it, and there was a young girl there that they had I don't know what her ailment was, but they had actually cut her open and plucked a chicken and laid a chicken inside of her wound, and they I don't know if it was some type of witch doctor that had done this, but anyhow, our GIs had called us to come in to medevac her out, and we went in and medevaced her and brought her back to the base camp. And I don't know how she came out or anything after that, but we brought her back into to our hospital for evaluation and treatment.
So on a dust-off flight, I mean, is there one medic, two medics, and then?
We had a medic and a crew chief, and a pilot and co-pilot.
And then yourself?
Well, I took place as a crew chief.
Okay. And any conversation going in or coming back with the wounded? I mean, is it quiet? Are they screaming, or is it just? I mean, you know, is it?
No, none of the flights that I had were like that right there. The crew member that you know, there was guys are in shock, and there were people that they were in pain, but it was a calmness that come over some of them for some reason or another. It's, you know, it's like they know what's happening to them, and they're waiting for somebody to help them in some way, but. I can't remember them being uncontrollable, and I think that their medics that were in their units that were with them had helped them enough to sedate them enough that they were flyable. We'd have to strap them down and keep it doing, and the medic would move and take care of them while they're in flight out, but or back to the base camp. But I guess there was just sort of a shock situation for them, and the pilots that we had were very very talented. I think the medevac pilots were probably and I flew with the other types of courier services, but the medevac pilots were probably the cream of the crop, and a lot of them were daredevils. And I appreciated flying with them, but because they were really intent on doing their job very serious and picking up and bringing back in people, no matter what kind of a hostility or that they were going into. There's a lot of risk in flying into a LZ or a landing zone and not knowing what's there, but those guys took their job very serious and were very well trained to do it. And I think they're probably the best of the schools that came out for helicopter pilots. Were probably the dust-off people.
You guys had no armor support going in? I mean, it's just you guys alone, or were there gunships around or not?
Well, there were gunships around if there was hostility going on, or just in conclusion, or at that time, but most of it was not flying for us, but it was really just well, I guess they were flying for us as protection for others around in the LZ, and they would fly to give us backup and coverage and protection.
But you guys didn't have any weapons firing out of your medevac flights, right? There was no.
Yeah, I carried an M16, and yeah, I use it. But and the pilots had an M16, and couldn't use it in the flight going in or out. But yeah, I can't remember actually using that when I flew courier service. We did get to use it then, but the M60 machine gun, but not during many medevac missions. Most of mine were pretty much secure LZs when we came in.
So they weren't hot at the time?
No.
Yeah.
No, I would say that a lot of the fellows that did fly had a lot of difficult situations to come into, but I was very fortunate.
Do you think about Vietnam anymore? I mean, is it something that happened a long time ago, or is it still part of your life?
Yeah, it's a big part of your life. You can't ever remember something when you've seen pain, or if you've been through pain. You can't help but remember it. And then a lot of us veterans want to try to blame things on our experiences that we went through in Vietnam, and I think I'm a part of that. I probably have blamed things that happened in my life on what's happened in Vietnam, and hopefully it doesn't repeat itself again in Afghanistan or Iraq.
Boy, that's true. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but we talked about the price for freedom. What does freedom mean to you? I mean, how would you describe freedom? What does that mean to you as a veteran?
That I get to do what I can do to help improve my life and my family's life, protected from invasion of others, and be able to prosper off of the things that I try to do and accomplish. I think that's an important part of being freedom. The suppressed countries probably never have had that feeling before, because a lot of the suppressed countries are they don't have the freedom in mind. They may have freedom in mind, but they don't have freedom in to go out and do what they want to. It's dictated on what they're going to do from day to day. And our country is great. I'm in a business that I own and operate, and other countries wouldn't have that privilege to do what I get to do and get the benefits that I get to have for the or the freedoms that I have. I can't. Freedom does mean a lot, but it's sometimes indescribable.
What does the American flag mean and represent to you as a veteran?
A lot of pride, and I love to salute the flag. And when I remember going to watch my boys play sports, or my daughter play sports, and we go and see the national anthem being played and the flag being done. I took a lot of pride in being able to salute and at an event, and when people know that I was a veteran when I do salute, and I thank goodness that we have people that still salute the flag.
Are you proud that you're a Vietnam veteran?
Yeah, that's why I'm here today. I'm glad that I've got to serve. As I told you, I have mixed emotions with it, but I'm glad I did get to serve my country, and I'm affected different ways by what the experiences that I've had, and all of us are. But yeah, I'm proud to be an American, and I'm proud to have served my country.
Do people thank you for your service?
A lot of people do.
How does that make you feel when that happens?
I'm very grateful. I got a call from a lady yesterday that you know, and she, and I thought about that on the way over here this morning, and she was reminding me of my appointment that I had today, and she, before we got off a conversation, she wanted to thank me for my service, and I'm very grateful for people to have acknowledged me in what we do. When you pay for something, you're grateful for any respect that people give you, and that's good to do that. And I think people are becoming more and more like that now, because we've learned our lessons from Vietnam, that hopefully these boys in Iraq and Afghanistan are coming back. I think they're going to get the recognition, and even the Korean vets are going to get the recognition that they just so rightfully deserve. So yeah.
I totally agree with that. Have you been back to the wall, the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I have. I went there for the inauguration when it was done, and I went back again when they put the statues up. But as I told you, I have a younger brother he's on that wall, so I do go visit him, and some other friends of mine that I serve with are on the wall too. So yeah, I do get to go see the wall. We've seen the moving wall. I've been helpful in getting the moving wall to come to our community, and that's been if we keep on waving our flag, people will recognize what's going on, and I think patriotism. I'm involved in veterans organizations, American Legion, the VFW, and the DAV, and the promotion of those three organizations there is to preserve the country and the GI Bill of Rights, and also to promote patriotism. And I think that's the preamble to those service organizations. So my hat's off to all the guys that are involved with the service organizations, because they are promoters of patriotism.
How do you feel when you're at the wall, looking at your brother's name, or the first time you went? I mean, do you feel a presence, a power? What do you feel?
Yeah, I feel a warmth that I have a presence with him and the other fellows that are on the wall, and that is, I'm grateful that our country wanted to do that for our people that lost their lives over there. So yeah, I feel some comfort in being able to be there with him, and then I can relate to some of the other people that have remorse that are there too. So you sort of develop an awe or aura of brotherhood with others that have the same loss of life in families, membership, or loved ones there. So yeah, it's a good healing effect to go there and to see that wall. I'm grateful that we have it, and the statues there too. It's good to see that.
Larry, what should people in the country remember about the Vietnam War?
hopefully that there won't be any more mistakes made that will benefit from the mistakes that we made there, and that those of us that did serve are proud of our service that we did serve, and that there are people wanting to serve in future wars, and we're going to have them. It seems like that's inevitable, but maybe we'll benefit from that, from the wars that we've been through, and it'll help us to keep from having the tragedies again of war.
Why do you think you kind of said a little bit, but as far as talking to me today and your buddy that referred you to me, I mean, do you think it's important that people learn about what we're talking about today and the stories and all that?
Yeah, if we don't expand or broadcast the errors that we've made in the past, they're going to repeat themselves again. So it's good to talk about these things and air them out. It's a comfort to those of us that serve too, to be able to talk about what we did, and I feel like there's a restoration of gratitude that, from people that will be able to see the things that you're doing that are helping those of us to still recover. I relate it sometimes to being like an addiction. You may have had an addiction before, but you don't ever get out of it. You're recovering from it. So all of us are still recovering from war and the loss of life. It's the loss of some physical or mental problems that people may have had in the war. And there's been a lot of that in every war.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just, I told you we talked to kids in schools, and we discussed some of these things.
That's
and
good.
I think a lot of them aren't even aware of what they have in this country, and then they see something like this and they're brought to the attention that, people lost their lives so that they can live like we do here in this country. And I think that's important to communicate that to our younger generation.
Oh yeah.
And you've got kids, I mean.
I got grandchildren that I've got one particular grandchild that's 9 years old, and he's very much into history and war and what goes on, and he knows of my younger brother that was killed, and he knows of my service. And in our community, our veterans organizations have built a museum from an old building, and a lot of the veterans from all the wars, we even have relics or artifacts, antiques from the Revolutionary War, which this county played a major part in. We have all of that, and it is in this museum, and we get to show off to our community and to our people what this museum has done in remembrance of veterans and what they fought for, and it's a good cause to have something that people can relate to, not just be told about, but they can go through our museum and see anything from weapons to newspaper articles to money from military organizations. So it's good to be able to have those things that our kids can see, so that they won't maybe they'll get some intelligence that they can not make mistakes that we made.
You hear things about Vietnam, and one of the things that I've heard was that, and I think with this, a lot of people think that the Vietnam vets were drug users and they came back and had all these problems. But were you aware of any drug usage in Vietnam? Was that a problem, or is it just maybe an exception?
No, yeah, it probably was a problem. Marijuana grass was available. Anybody wanted it over there. I don't know about any other drugs other than the ones that the medics had available for their wounded, but it was a problem there, and I'm sure it contributed to some loss of life over there. But I know probably I'm guilty of usage of it, but I'm thankful that I got enough sense to get away from it. But I'm glad that I didn't get so far involved with it that I continued to use it over there or when I came back home.
Was it available there, or did troops bring it over, or was it just in the country there?
It's in country. I mean, they grew it everywhere there. Marijuana was available all over. It was very much available.
Is veterans coming home, did you ever suffer a lot of the things that some of the veterans have suffered with the post-traumatic stress, things like that, or is that just something that didn't bother you after the war?
I think everybody has some effect of that. You have, you know, you come home and you may not feel like appreciated, and then you have mind games that play with you. So yeah, everybody's affected by that, and stress from what you went through or what you thought you went through, and nobody else had to go through it, and some of the friends that you may have gone through school with that had the ability to go into service but didn't go in. So yeah, I think that's part of post-traumatic stress too. If you look at other people that why did I have to go and they didn't have to go? So.
Did you get much of a homecoming? I've heard some horror stories about people coming home. What was your homecoming on?
I got off the plane and my mother and dad were there on the airport in Charlotte, North Carolina, and two of my aunts and my older brother was there. That's my younger brother had already been inducted into the Army, so that was the only homecoming I had. When I got home, when they pulled up in the driveway, my folks had put a little banner across the yard, "Welcome home," and then one set of my neighbors from across the street had 5 kids. It was a Cook family, and their kids came over and sat on my couch, and they were maybe ages from 6 to or 4 to 7, 4 to 11, somewhere along in there. But that was my homecoming party there, and that didn't bother me because I wasn't wanting a big fanfare, and my grandfather, who operated a newspaper there in Gaffney, he had called on me he was a member of the Rotary, and he had me come to the Rotary a few days afterwards. And those fellows at the Rotary meeting were appreciative of my service, but I don't know if I said the right thing then or if I'm saying the right thing now. So you always question what you're saying, or if it's intelligent enough for everybody to understand or appreciate what you went through. But I tried to tell them what I went through, and as I am here today with you. So that was really the only recognition that I got, other than my mother and my father, which was the greatest appreciation that I had, and I'm think about them a lot for what they sacrificed. Not only did I sacrifice, but they sacrificed. I got a letter every day from them. I may not have gotten it every day. If we didn't have a courier service coming in and out, then I might have gotten 5 letters after about 6 days. So it was good to have that availability.
Was there a time when you're in Vietnam and flying these medevacs and back and forth at night? I mean, what's going through your head? Do you need time to kind of process all this information, or think about it, or do you talk to your buddies, or do you go out drinking? How do you relieve the stress of the war at the time?
Now, how do I relieve it? Now, while I was in the country?
Yeah.
I think it was just when you got a radio call in that they needed a mission, and you quickly loaded up and took off, you're worried about what's going on and what you're coming into. But if they've got good radio contact on the ground, and you sort of have an indication, you can hear what's going on when the pilot is transmitting to the RTO or the ground operator. You know what you're coming into a lot of the times, and so you can get prepared somewhat for it. He can tell you if it's hostile forces are right there close by, but you're always sort of, you know they're there because something's happened. They're just laying and waiting for you. But yeah, worried, yeah, scared, yeah. How much? I don't know how to measure it. I just don't know how to measure that.
I've talked to people that have flown the dust-offs, a lot of the pilots, the Huey pilots, and the grunts, the soldiers, everybody involved. But I think your story is really unique in what you had to do. The responsibility, like you said, you saw the aftermath of war. It's not pretty, obviously, but did you talk to anybody about it after the war, or did you just not talk for 40 years or whatever?
I think we talk about it at our veterans organizations meetings, not specific events and times, but I've managed to stay in touch with several of the guys that I was over there with. One fellow that lives in Montana that was over there with me, and his brother was there in country at the same time, and his brother was wounded in country. But I talked to them occasionally about it, and I've had a couple of them that were friends of mine that they've called on me because somehow or another they found out where I was at, or I found out where they're at, and we'd call and we'd talk. But not specifically. It's just, I can't think that we talked that much about. We just say, how are you doing today? How did you get through what? How's your life been for you after 40 years? I've tried not to dwell too much on the horrors of it, but just on the remembrance of the friends that I met and the people that I met over there and the relationships that we developed. And I'd like to have known more and more, but in Vietnam we didn't go over as a unit, come back as a unit. We went over individually and rotated back home individually without. And if you didn't get your address and telephone number or somehow keep up with the fellows after you came back, it was hard to keep in touch with them. But I have managed to keep it, 2 or 3 of them, and contact them occasionally.
We're just about done, but I want to ask you again, are there any particular stories of the wounded, helping the wounded, that come to your mind, or was it all just kind of a blur? I mean, are there maybe one that stands out more than the others as far as the patients you transported?
No, none of them that I think that would be probably the dead are the ones that when we put them in the Connex, you just see their boots sticking out, and you shut the doors on them until those are the ones that you wonder who that guy was, or where he's from, or does he have anybody that cares? And does anybody there care about him? And who was he? So yeah, the other wounded and all, I remember them, but I think my biggest impression is the dead.
I'm going to ask you to do one more thing that I ask all the veterans at the end of my interviews. From where you're seated, when I tell you, can you give me a salute into the camera?
I sure will.
I tell you?
I sure will.
Okay, Larry, right in the camera. Okay, great. All right.